All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, many of you cats might not realize this right now, but the NBA is in a bit of a conundrum. As we all know, the league is extremely narrative driven. It has been since the start of its modern era, which is commonly considered from 1979 to now. And they've always had an ambassador who they could turn to, who was considered the best player in the league, who could act as a mediator between the league and the masses, who the fans would say, not only is that guy the best player in the league, but I like him. I want to watch his games. It started with Dr. J, who helped the league through a very tumultuous time period between the 1970s and the early 80s. And then it transferred over to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Eventually, Michael Jordan rose to the occasion with that Isaiah Thomas Bad Boy Pistons interregnum. After Jordan retired, you had Akeem Olajuwon in another interregnum period. And then Jordan, of course, came back. You had the rise of Tim Duncan, and then, of course, the rise of Shaq and Kobe, which was a dynasty of the 2000s. In the mid-2000s, it was very difficult to assess who the best player in the NBA was, and we saw a fall in ratings because there were about 4 or 5 guys who could make claim that they were the best player in the NBA, believe it or not. You had Kobe, you had LeBron, you had even Dirk Nowitzki, quiet as kept. In the mid-2000s, he was as impactful as any player in the NBA. Of course, you had the great Tim Duncan. And right on the outside looking in, you also had D. Wade for about 2 or 3 years, who could say, at least from an exterior perspective, that he felt like he could also lay claim to being considered the best player in the NBA. In my view, in the 2000s, the best overall player was Tim Duncan, but certain cats might disagree. It's okay. The point being is that, in my view, one of the reasons why the league was not as popular as it is right now, or as it was in the 90s or 80s, is because there was not that one guy or those 2 guys who you could say they're definitely the best. Throughout the 2010s, it's been LeBron James for the most part. There was a little blip on the radar screen where Steph Curry had the stranglehold for a moment in 2016. Obviously, it was wrestled out of his grasp in the 2016 finals. And it's for the most part been considered LeBron, even though KD also has his fan base. And that gets me to my point. How are we going to consider who's going to take the throne from LeBron James? The quote-unquote best player in the NBA has always been someone who was relatable, who the media could go to and ask him a question and he always had the right answer. KD is just not that guy. When I look at Kevin Durant, I liken him much more towards a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, an extremely talented weapon who has to be on a team with another player who has leadership abilities, and then you'll see him fully shine. Kareem won 6 titles, and it's not a coincidence that he needed the 2 greatest point guards of all time to win them. Not taking any credit away from Kareem, but he was not a leader. Kevin Durant also is not a leader. He's a great weapon. So that is why I cannot put him in the throne. Certain cats might say, well, what are you talking about? LeBron James is not a leader either. Yes, he is. He's just not a very good one. LeBron is a leader. He's just not a good one. Kevin Durant's not a leader at all. So that is why I tap Giannis Antetokounmpo as the quote-unquote best player in the NBA. He's still in that maturation process. So we'll see how much better his game gets. The only issue that I see with him potentially is that girlfriend of his. I've mentioned that in another video, or maybe more than one video. But that's a situation to watch because I believe that she's being very patient with him. And he's a cat from overseas, so he might not quite understand how the American liberal woman works, especially when she thinks that she has the opportunity to strike a gold mine. So I think that she's playing nice until she can get that ring. But we'll see what happens. Either way, I place Giannis Antetokounmpo in the throne tenuously because I do believe that LeBron James is going to make a frantic attempt to take his throne back next season. We'll see what happens. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right, I'll tell you somebody else who's doing all right. Kevin Durant. Last night, KD poured in 28 points, but get this. He did it on 12 of 13 from the field. It's a career-best 92% shooting performance. KD helped lead the Warriors to a win over Memphis. They're now a half-game lead over Denver for the top spot in the West. Here's Durant talking about his performance following the game.
I caught all my shots, makes and misses, so I felt good going in, start the game, made my first 3 shots, and I got a couple layups that got me going. So I was patient tonight, played a little point guard there in the 4th quarter to kind of settle us down a bit, and I was able to get some good shots for myself and my teammates.
Now, did you brothers hear that? KD basically tried to assert himself as the leader of the squad. He said, I played a little point guard tonight to try to settle us down a bit. Now, what is he really saying? He's really saying that I had to take over the game from Steph because we were a little frantic out there. Every once in a while, KD says a little shit if you pay very close attention to try to make the viewers believe that he's the leader on the team or the best player on the team. And I'm still not quite sure that he's a better overall player than Steph Curry. We know that there are more things that he can do because of his stature, his height, his length, etc. But when it comes to pure impact on the floor, I don't know if there's another player in the league as impactful as Steph Curry.
I don't think there's ever been anybody as skilled at his size in the history of the league. So,
well, I would agree with that. KD is 7 feet with guard skills.
He just does whatever he wants.
92% from the field, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. Stephen A., is that the best player in the game right now?
Yes, it is. It's something that I've repeatedly alluded to. I've called him the number 2 player in the world. I know everybody's on Giannis's tip right now because he appears to be, and it probably is the most dominant. I mean, gaining 57 pounds of muscle since he first came into the league, just moving people out of the way,
It's not even quite about that, Stephen A. Smith. It's the fact that he actually has shown leadership abilities, as well as an ability to dominate on the floor offensively and defensively. Is his offensive game as nuanced as Kevin Durant? Of course not, and probably never will be. But it's still the same effect. Whether you average 27 points a game through mid-range and long-range jump shots and being able to turn over your left shoulder or your right shoulder, or whether you average 27 points a game with dunks and layups and free throws, and also averaging 12.5 rebounds, 6 assists, leading the NBA in defensive win shares. I mean, Giannis is doing his thing. The people who have Durant above him, it's understandable because, once again, Durant's track record is that he's been dominant pretty much for the last 10 years. Giannis is just starting to come into his dominant phase. But I'm not quite sure if KD ever even had a season as the leader of a team that Giannis is having this year.
The mean streak in him will dunk on anybody. Shaq came on my radio show after Super Bowl week and called them the closest thing to me.
I know that. I did a video about it.
Since me. That's what Shaq said about himself. He said, I never wanted to give up the Superman, tag before. But for this dude, meaning the Greek freak, I will.
I agree with that. I've already stated that Giannis Antetokounmpo is this era's Shaq. In this high-paced, back and forth, up and down, shoot a lot of threes era. Giannis Antetokounmpo is this era's version of Shaquille O'Neal.
Fine, no problem. But that don't make him the best player in the game. Last time I checked, KD played some defense too. And offensively, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to say this, I'm going to put this out on a limb. Giannis ain't in KD's class offensively.
He's not in his class when it comes to the diversity of skills. But when it comes to output, they're both right there. And defensively, one could make the case that KD is not in Giannis's class defensively.
Ain't in his class offensively. He can't shoot like that, brother. Kevin Durant, yes. The only thing you can say about Kevin Durant is that he's skinny and that he's not as strong as Giannis. That's about it. There is nothing offensively that he can't do to put the ball in the hole. It's a career 27 point per game.
It's very true, but we all know that KD can be taken off of his game with some physicality.
Scorer. Kevin Durant does that in his sleep. Kevin Durant, the biggest person that stops Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. There is no human being that steps on the basketball court that neutralizes, nullifies, and flat out stops Kevin Durant. It does not happen. It's only Kevin Durant that does that because
well, I've seen Tony Allen do a pretty good job against him in that Memphis series a few years ago.
Religiously, he's deferential. He doesn't mind deferring to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, or anybody else. Playing the right way, being very judicious in his shot selection, except.
This is why I don't understand why Kevin Durant would even consider leaving Golden State. They're literally the perfect team for him.
Etc., etc. That's what Kevin Durant does. So because that's his style, that's the way he goes about doing it, he doesn't average 35. But is anybody going to sit up here and tell me that Kevin Durant can't average 35 or 36 a game anytime he wants?
Well, he certainly can do that in a system that would allow him to try to do that.
And I'm talking about on anything, nothing less than 49 to 50% shooting. That's Kevin Durant. He can do that anytime he wants.
That's very tiring, though, Stephen A. Smith. People underestimate the level of stamina that you need to put up that many shots every game. I've mentioned this already. LeBron James, for the most part, his body starts to peter out at around 45 points. If you ever watch LeBron James' high scoring outputs, His body starts to give out on him when he gets into that mid to upper 40-point range.
He just elects not to because he doesn't mind being deferential. And that's been the reason people question him. He ain't a skill set. The brother's all world.
Sure, he could do that. The question is, could he do it for a winning team? Could he do it in a winning effort?
Of course he could.
You're making the mistake a lot of ballers make, and you played college basketball, Division II. You had a scholarship.
Absolutely. He rode the hell out of that bench.
It's a mistake that people make about athletes frequently that I notice. Not a huge one, but it's relevant here. You see a guy's skill set and everything he can do, and you say, that's the most well-rounded. Where's the weakness? He's almost 7 feet tall. He can defend. You can switch. You can put him on different guys, and he can guard various positions. He can shoot from the outside. He can put the ball on the floor. He's a good passer. He's a willing passer. He always makes the right basketball play. He can take it to the hole. Where's the weakness? And you mistake that for being the best.
Agreed. That is why so many Kobe fans, they just don't get it when they say, well, you know, so many players pick Kobe over LeBron James. I don't give a shit what players think. That's why most of these players, when they had the opportunity to vote for the All-Star game, look at their All-Star picks. Most of these players, their job is to play. It's not to assess who's better when you get to that ethereal level of talent and skill and output. I mean, there's no disrespect, but that's why, you know, every once in a while you'll find a player who actually understands how to assess other players, other great players, and what they can do in a system. But that stuff means nothing to me. Oh, most players will pick Kobe over LeBron. No shit, because Kobe Bryant is every player's wet dream. To have that skill set and also that green light. And nobody cares when you shoot 8 for 26.
Because he has the most tools in the toolbox. That doesn't make you the best. There are lots of more well-rounded players than Shaquille O'Neal when Shaq was in his prime, but he was the best player in the league.
Agreed. And I hope that many of you Kobe fans heard that.
He did not have the most well-rounded skill set, but the things he could do were just unstoppable.
Yep. That's why he won the MVP award in the finals in 2000, 2001, and 2002.
In every sport, you can find players like this. Not the most well-rounded, not the one with no weakness, nevertheless the best player in the league. Before Michael Jordan could shoot from the outside, he was way better than everyone in the NBA.
No, sir. That's not true. But as usual, Max Kellerman loves hyperbole. Michael Jordan did not become the best player in the NBA probably until sometime around 1989, 1990. What he was the most spectacular player in the NBA by far in the mid-'80s. And there was never a point where Michael Jordan was a bad jump shooter. That's more false narrative by the media. They claim that Jordan couldn't shoot. From his first season, he was shooting over 50% from the field. You could not shoot over 50% from the field as a guard and be the primary offensive option and be the recipient of double teams if you cannot shoot at all. It's just not possible. Look at his regular season stats in his rookie year. He averaged over 28 points a game. He shot over 51% from the field. So that's the old wives' tale that Michael Jordan couldn't shoot when he first came into the league. He just was not a consistent long-range jump shooter. But the mid-range shot he always had. But just to get back to the original attempt at a point, no, Michael Jordan was not the best player in the NBA from when he first stepped foot in the league. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were better than him. Isaiah Thomas had a far higher basketball IQ than him overall. And after about 4 or 5 years, Jordan, being the unbelievably quick learner that he was, along with Phil Jackson's tutelage and being able to implement his game in a real system, allowed him to take his overall game to the next level and become the best player in the NBA by around 1989, 1990, heading into his first championship season in 1990-91. That's how that went.
Way better before he could shoot from the outside. Kevin Durant is the most well-rounded, yes, but one of the reasons you criticized him, as you did, and many did, for joining the Warriors, is that, I know this is not what reverse engineering means, but let me appropriate the phrase, he was trying to reverse engineer his greatness. Aha, if you need to win championships and then you're considered great, I'll go to a team where if you add me, not just KD, you could add Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, they'd be unstoppable, but if you add me, there's no way we can't win. And since I'm going to be the primary scorer on a team of scorers, I'll end up as the Finals MVP, which is what happened. But the same reason you criticized him is the reason he doesn't get the full credit for winning championships.
Well, I'll say this, just to add on to your point, Max Kellerman, because some of what you said at the end about KD was valid. What I'll also say is that's the same reason why Kevin Durant cannot be considered the best player in the NBA right now. because he is in a position where many of the intangibles that show true greatness are not allowed to sprout and shine forth. We know about the tangibles, but when you're a real leader, it's the intangibles that count the most.
Breakdown, let me help you out on a couple of points. First of all, when you bring up Kevin Durant, can he be on a winning team? When has he been on a losing team?
No.
They weren't
and he
losing
averaged 35 on a winning
Yeah, but
team.
what I'm saying to you is that you don't know what he can't do because all you know is what he can do. Kevin Durant has never been on a losing team. Oklahoma City won every year. They win champion.
Right, but Steve, that's not the point. The point is whether or not he can average 35 or 36 on a winning team. So you're really just saying a whole lot of nothing there.
Championships, but they were winning 50-plus games. They were in the
I just want to be clear.
On a losing team.
I know Kevin Durant is almost incapable of being on a losing team.
Well, that's what I'm
saying.
Right, because he plays a winning style of basketball.
Saying is, if he averaged the numbers you're
For the most part.
talking about, could he do that in the service of a win?
I understand that, but what I'm saying to you is he can. My point is he can do what he wants. He chooses not to. Number two, when you bring up Michael Jordan, you need to stop saying what you say about him not being able to shoot jump shots. No, Michael Jordan elevated himself to a level where when his athleticism waned, because Father Time had kicked in, he was completely reliant on that jump shot. But this was a brother. He wasn't a
That's not quite true either. Michael Jordan was always a very serviceable mid-range jump shooter. And by the late 80s going into the early 90s, he was one of the top 5 mid-range jump shooters in all the NBA, especially off the dribble. By the time he retired the first time, he was probably the best mid-range jump shooter off the dribble in the entire NBA.
He wasn't a jump shooter. He was a scorer. But unlike the Greek Freak, all of his points didn't come from dunking on you or layup. Michael Jordan, when he dropped 63 on Bird and he was dancing and Bird called them the closest thing to God, or God and sneakers
that famous clip, that 15, 18 feet.
Exactly. That 15, 18 feet. Michael Jordan could hit that. So talking about him like he's somebody that just, he had a jump shot later on. No. Michael Jordan
can eat you. Three-point shot later on.
He can eat you alive. So the point is, Giannis can't do that. KD can.
Hold on.
KD can.
Max.
Yeah, but that's kind of a false equivalency because I don't think that Giannis's dominance is based on trying to mimic Kevin Durant's game. And that also plays into the point that Max Kellerman made. Yes, KD has a more well-rounded offensive game. But at the end of the day, whether you score your 30 points through a series of mid-range jump shots and long-range jump shots and free throws, or you score your 30 points by dunking on people, doesn't really matter.
You've laid out why you think KD is not the best player in the NBA. You've laid out the analysis of what it takes to be the best player in the NBA. So who is the best player in the NBA?
This is the interesting point right now. It's sort of the title's vacant.
Agreed.
Like when the champ retires and the title's vacant, we got to see. Right now, LeBron did not have the best regular season. He will not have a chance to prove anything in the postseason because he won't be in it. So the baton is laid down. Who wants to pick it up? Here are the candidates, and KD is among them. Although it's harder for him to prove because he's on a team where he will. It's always one-on-one with KD because you can't leave Clay and Steph open. So he's put himself in a situation where he'll get a lot of press, but he's made it harder for him to prove that he's the best player in the league.
I agree with that, even though I don't think that the KD one-on-one situation is relevant because we've already seen Kevin Durant in OKC basically playing in a playground style of offense where he was still shooting 50% and going one-on-one for the entire game.
In the league, James Harden. If James Harden has a great playoffs, I'd say he'll be the best player in the league. The Greek Freak.
Right, but James Harden having a great playoff means winning a championship. If James Harden can win a championship this season, I'll put James Harden in the throne as the best player in the league for now. But I don't see him doing that.
These are the 2 MVP candidates. Same thing. How about this guy? Steph Curry. He's on the same team as KD. When KD doesn't play, they barely miss a beat. When Steph doesn't play, they're a significantly worse team.
Steph is a dark horse as the best player in the NBA, but he'll never get that recognition ever again after the 2016 finals. That's where Steph lost any chance he ever had of being considered the best player in the league.
So who's actually better? I mean, that's just, if I may, none of those players are checking the box of the Max Kellerman analysis, which is can you average 35 in service of winning? The only other player who is actually winning on your list would be Steph Curry. And I think, to your point, Stephen A., the question is this: can you play winning basketball? See, I think you're making an argument. KD can do what you do, James. He can do what you do, Giannis. Can you do what KD
Wait, hold on.
Which is become part of a winning team.
That's a mischaracterization.
Well, Giannis is in the process of doing that.
of what I'm saying. Maybe you misunderstand.
Even though I think that his team is going to have to be fully healthy for them to make a deep run in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. I just think that, as Max Kellerman has stated, it's kind of a vacant title, that throne, or that that moniker of who is the new best player in the league. That's why I say that it's still open to LeBron. If LeBron can come back next year, lead the Lakers to 55 wins, which I doubt, unless they're able to sign another big-name free agent, which I doubt, and he would have put up averages of 28, 9, and 9 like he normally does and play 75-plus games, then he'll have the right to lay claim to that title yet again, especially if they can have a deep run in the playoffs.
That's not my analysis. Stephen A. You said that he could do what Harden's doing, average 35, whatever.
And you
what I'm saying is Harden's doing it for a team that almost knocked out KD's team last year
because
without his second best player.
Time out. He has to, and it's a tribute to James Harden that he can and he does it. What I'm saying to you is, find me one basketball aficionado that would tell you Kevin Durant can't do that if he wants to. He doesn't have to.
That's the drawback of the decision he made.
But time out. What I'm trying to say to you is also, I'm glad you brought up this point. Because one of the things that I think you're missing, Max, is that there was one of the reasons James Harden is gone. Wasn't just, and we all realize it was a mistake. I think that Sam Presti, and I should have put it on Sam Presti, let me apologize for that. It's ownership. They didn't want to come up with the additional $4 million to get literally $4 million. Not $4 million per year.
That was crazy. And I remember that at the time. They were trying to decide between James Harden and, what's this cat named? Serge Ibaka. And I actually agreed with them at the time that they should keep Serge Ibaka because there was a glut of talent that they had. I mean, they had drafted so well. Sometimes you could draft too well for your own good. People forget that team also had Jeff Green back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Jeff Green, all on the same team or around at the same time. Their drafting was unbelievable. But it worked out best for everybody because James Harden got to go to Houston and win an MVP. Russell Westbrook has won an MVP. Kevin Durant has won an MVP. So Sam Presti can say that I was the GM who drafted 3 MVPs. I'm not quite sure if another GM can say that.
Per year.
Hindsight,
$4 million for James Harden, which is ridiculous. But one of the positions, if you talk to Oklahoma City, which I have, one of the positions that they take is this. James Harden knew what kind of player he could be. He wanted to be that guy. So it wasn't just about paying him the money. It was Russ's team. That was very, very clear.
That's right, Steve. It was Russ's team. And you just answered the question as to why Kevin Durant left that squad. Because he did not trust Russell Westbrook's leadership, nor should he have.
Us. We were making sure everybody understood we had to make a choice because when you had Russ and KD and James Harden, you had to make a decision. And I'm saying to you, Kevin Durant doesn't put you in a position where you have to make a decision. It don't matter where you put him, he works.
Okay, and then check this.
That's very true. But you knew that last year, so how come you didn't have Kevin Durant as your best player in the NBA last year? You had LeBron James. And we know that LeBron James does not work in every system. As a matter of fact, he does not work in any system other than the LeBron James system. So let's not use that as criteria or the only criteria for what makes you the best player in the NBA. You also have to have that leadership quality, and KD does not have that.
This out to answer the question. The best player in the NBA at this moment is the Greek Freak. He's the #1 player.
He's the person that I will call the best overall player in the league right now when it comes to impact on both offense and defense, being a leader and being able to captain his team to victory. But once again, the playoffs are going to be a major referendum on the Greek Freak. They have to, at the very least, get out of the first round, assuming that they're still going to be as plagued by the injury bug as they currently are. They have to, at the very least, get out the first round. And if they're fully healthy, they have to get to, at the very least, the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7 or Game 6. And really, they should get to the finals. But Philadelphia is so talented, I could see Philadelphia beating them. I could also see Boston beating them. Because those teams were built to win championships this season. Milwaukee has kind of come out of nowhere.
Can't shoot, and he's still the best player. I love Giannis, but he's yet to become that winning player. But let's move forward.
He's trying to. He's in the process of doing so. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Peace.